Howdy y'all, my name is Heri Joensen from Tyr, and you're watching Lone Star Metal.
What's up, Texas Metalheads? It's Rusty Connor here, Lone Star Metal. I've got Heri Joensen from Tyr. How's it going?
It's going well, thanks.
Awesome. So you told me the tour is going well.
Yeah, tour's going excellent.
We're ending the tour.
Yeah.
Awesome.
This is we have 4 more shows after this one, and it's been about 4 weeks.
Excellent. Good crowd participation.
Excellent crowds, excellent sales, very good reviews.
Excellent. It's good to hear that a band from a little tiny island can come over here and kick some ass.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter where you come from. If you do it right, I guess everybody can do it.
That's true. Very true. So I've been doing some research, and I've heard you mention several times the concept of Tyr in previous interviews.
Yeah.
So what would you say encompasses the concept of Tyr? And like I said before, when you put a Tyr album on, you know it's Tyr. So not necessarily album concept, but band concept.
I'm very glad to say that, because I think it's very valuable for a band to have such a recognizable sound and some uniqueness. When we started the band, my idea was to make a band founded on Nordic mythology,
right,
and hence the name. But then again, it's also traditional music from the Faroes and the other Nordic countries. How do you say it? Put together with more or less standard heavy metal, maybe composed in a classical way. So I guess I have a different approach to songwriting than most other bands in the folk pagan Viking scene.
Right.
And the concept it was my style of songwriting, and the as for lyrics, the mythological and historical universe that we put all our lyrics in.
Right, I like it. So you've talked about your songwriting, and I know that on this particular, the newest album, which we'll talk about here in a minute, I've heard you mention that you've kind of relinquished control, so to speak, of songwriting and let Terji and maybe Gunnar wrote.
Yeah. So we have 13 songs for the album now. And I wrote 5 of them, I think, or 6 of them, Terji 5 and Gunnar 2. Yeah, that's about right. So I wanted for a long time to involve the other band members, but there's always an extreme pressure to get it done in time, and somehow it always ends in my hands. But this time I got some basic ideas from Gunnar and Terji. Some songs are like quite finished, but some just like a riff or 2. And I still do the vocal melodies and the choir arrangement, so it may sound like a little bit different angle to the songwriting, but you'll still hear that it's Tyr.
Okay.
So and I don't mind. I mean, it's not a bad thing for a band to sort of have several directions at one time.
I agree.
And it could make it less boring to those who think it's turning a bit uniform.
Yeah.
But let's see what people think.
I agree. Let's do it. So, talking about that, what musical boundaries, if any, have you set within the concept of Tyr?
Well, I used to want everything to be playable live, and I used to not want to do anything on album that we couldn't do live. I sort of let go of that, even though with the restrictions that we're not going to put things on the album that we simply can't represent. Like we have now, for example, a backtrack machine. So if we have like extra choirs or any instruments for intros and whatnot, it still plays. It's just not the band playing. You're hearing a different recording. We haven't used keyboards, for example, and I guess that's a stylistic decision. let's keep it to guitars and bass and vocals, and that's sort of our signature sound.
I find that, I'll interrupt you for just for a second. I find that interesting since you cited Rainbow and Deep Purple and bands like that are kind of keyboard laden.
Yeah, I mean, I started listening to keyboard music when I was younger. That was my first kind of metal, like Europe and bands like TNT, Queen, for example. Heavily classical and then keyboard-based bands. So it just wasn't. I don't know. I got more of a kick out of bands like Judas Priest, Dio, Wasp, Motley Crue. No keyboards, just a bit more rock and roll. Although our approach is very far from rock and roll. It's more of a classical approach with more like Judas Priest, I guess.
Yeah, with the arrangements of the songs.
Yeah.
So we talked about musical influence. People always talk about musical influence, and I've seen, like I mentioned, you've mentioned your musical influences before, but I'm kind of interested. I'm actually fascinated by the whole fact that you're from like an isolated island. So, how has being on the Faroe Islands itself, like the environment of the island, contributed to you as a musician? Not necessarily the music part, but because you mentioned Judas Priest, and they talk about they grew up in the industrial part of England, stuff like that. So, has the Faroe Islands influenced you, and how?
Well, if you take into account the fact that we have preserved traditional music and mythology and history on verse through centuries, then that definitely has influenced my songwriting. As for the landscape or direct environment, I guess it could be inspiring in some way, but growing up there, you don't notice it yourself. You don't notice the landscape until you've been away for a few years and come back, and then you see it's actually nice to look at and maybe inspiring in some way. But that's not something I noticed when I was young. It could still have had an impact on my songwriting and my personality. Might well have, yes.
Because I know you've mentioned that you've been labeled Viking metal, pagan metal, and all that stuff, and I've noticed you reluctantly embraced that moniker and that subgenre. But, and I've seen you mention that you didn't even know about those bands when.
When we made our first album, there was some reviews saying that we clearly ripped off Bathory from Sweden. Ripped off whom? Excuse me? and some other English band, Vader or whatever, or Polish. I don't remember. I don't know. Anyway, I'd never heard those bands, so the same thing happened in several places, independent of each other, and I'm sure it happened several times. Now, these subgenres are necessary for journalists and labels to promote the music, so musicians fight against them in vain. So, I call it folk Viking pagan metal now.
Folk Viking pagan metal.
If
there you go.
Progressive, maybe. I don't know. You put on anything you like. And,
you could change the genre of anything just by putting the word progressive in front of it. So,
Yeah, that's true. Are we a bit progressive? I guess we are.
I would say so. Would you agree, Jamie?
But there's a little bit of like classical heavy metal, like Judas Priest. There's a little bit of Pantera, maybe with a slight trashy riffing, and
yet you're not so progressive with your guitars up here.
No. You have to look at it at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
take the glasses off if you wear glasses.
So I'm simply I'm aware that these labels are put on us from without. So we put any label on us you want to, and we'll probably use it.
You're still going to do you, right?
Yeah, it doesn't change our music.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about this upcoming album. This is your Chinese Democracy. I'm seeing. It's taking forever for it to come out, or even Hysteria. Hysteria took forever to come out.
They had real issues. I don't really have. There's a lot of procrastination involved here, and just trying to work out the good circumstances to work. I've had a lot of other projects going at the same time. I have bills to pay, and I need to earn a bit of money, and you don't earn anything sitting in the studio recording. So I have my workstation set up over there, and I have 3 solos left. I'm working on the third last one at the moment, and then I need to edit the choirs. They're all recorded. I just need to go through them. I think I've done 4 songs so far, so there's 9 songs of choirs left to edit. Then I'm done. I'll send it for mixing, and impressive.
Yeah.
You spent 5 years doing that. It's not.
But it's crunch time now.
It is. It was 2 years ago, but we met with the representatives from the label Metal Blade in where were we, San Diego, and I promised him I'd do it as soon as possible. I hope I can make it before the tour is over.
Nice. We do too. We've been waiting a long time.
Thanks.
So I've seen references on Facebook for the working titles and some actual, I would say, set in stone titles, but that's never set in stone until you put the record out. So I've seen references to, of course, pagan mythology, hell, whether it's the person or the locale, I'm not sure. Gates of hell, I guess, would be the locale.
Yeah, it is, yes.
And then I've seen Aragorn, maybe Lord of the Rings
that was a working title.
Okay.
The song is now called All Heroes Fall.
Okay, all right. So the working titles don't necessarily translate to...
They do not. I've sort of tried to use them for reference, because when you have a weak starting point to write a text or even a blank page, it's close to impossible to get real start. So I try to sort of use the working titles to work my way into a subject. Okay. And you can maybe see the line from Aragorn to All Heroes Fall.
Yeah.
So and still working with a different main subject for the whole album. That would a mythological subject that we picked years ago.
Okay. And I noticed you've been pretty tight-lipped on album title and things of that nature.
Yes, I have.
You described the cover as blue and black, maybe.
Have I done that?
In one interview you did. I don't know if it was the truth or not, but
yeah.
Is there anything you can tell us other than it'll be out pretty soon?
I should leave that to the label to reveal.
Okay, all right, will do. Although I have seen there's a Faroese ballad.
There are 2.
2.
Yeah.
Okay. So how would you say that word?
Kväje.
Kväje?
Kväje.
Okay. Well, he said it, not me. Which means ballad.
Ballad,
right?
yes.
Okay. Cool. So there's still that traditional.
Yes.
From Tyr's old.
Yes, there
days.
are 2 of them, and both with Faroese traditional lyrics. The other 4 songs that I've written, I've used traditional melodies as well. Although the songs have English lyrics. You may be able to hear the traditional melody influence.
Okay, good. And I've seen you talked about a learning curve with your home studio. So
yeah,
does that contribute a little bit to the delay? You can say it.
Yeah,
we're not fucking bleed here.
It sure does, man. I mean, we went into this thing. We'd save some time and some money. We may have saved some money, but you sure as hell didn't save any time. I can tell you that. Because when you go into a studio with a guy who does 1 album a month, he knows exactly what he's doing, and you get a real rock star treatment. Doing it yourself, you have to figure everything out from scratch, and it takes some time. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
So, but we have it now. Maybe it'll be good for the next album, but it was not for this.
So you learned what not to do on this album.
Yeah, mostly.
Excellent.
And a very small part of it is learning what actually to do.
So we kind of talked about the album and the concept and things like that. Let's go in general. What would you say has contributed to the evolution of your music from the very first album to the one that's going to come out eventually?
Well, when we made
there has been an evolution.
There has been. When we made the first album, I remember quite clearly that hearing it after it was done, having the idea for the songs and the album before going to studio, and hearing it when I was done, I really had the feeling, hey, that's not what I intended to do. That's not at all what I intended to do. So the second album is a much more honest and competent approach. The first one was sort of fumbling in the darkness and seeing what we could come up with. So some of it is pretty original, I think, for that reason. And the second album already, that would be Eric the Red, shows the band in much closer to the style that we have today. Mm-hmm. So there you can hear the direction I intended to go originally. The first one is much more doomy, much more maybe Black Sabbath Dio, right. Very dark, and the second one has more of a modern sound. And we have over the years sort of refined our songwriting in many ways. It's some songs are much faster, although we still have some down-tempo songs. But the average tempo, I guess, has definitely gone up. Also with the introduction of new drummers, and I mean, as for our standard songwriting, we know what we're doing now, and you make some mistakes. You make a song and you have a brilliant idea for it after you've recorded and released it.
Of course.
And
that's when you change it live.
Yeah, no, I'm sort of autistic about that. I want it to be as on album when we play it live.
Okay.
So we don't change songs live, even though we get a better idea.
Yeah.
We want to play I want to play it as it is on album, as close as possible.
Yeah, because you might get those fans that are like, that's not how it's done.
Yeah, you get those nerdy fans, and I want to please the nerdy fans because I feel like that myself when I go to shows. I sort of talk myself into a corner now. What did you ask me about?
The evolution of the songs.
Yeah, we know what we're doing now, and we know, I guess, how to catch ourselves making stupid mistakes that we've done before. And we get more input from each other now. Take an album like Ragnarok or Land, for example. I just made everything myself, sitting alone, poring over details for years, especially for Ragnarok. So it's an album that I'm very satisfied with, but it could have been better, but with input from more sides. And now I try to give all the band members a fair chance of suggesting changes and edits, and I think that. Gunnar, for example, Gunnar and I worked on the arrangement of the songs together for a long time, and there are ideas that he has that I think, wait, why the hell didn't I think of that? And the whole songwriting process is better, and we have more patience with each other. Well, let me put it this way: I have more patience with the other band members. I may not always have been so easy to work with. It's easier now.
It takes a man to admit that.
I'm glad you say that. So it's more relaxed now, and I think we have a better songwriting process, and we want to do it even better for the next album again.
Excellent. So I have a bit of a personal question for you.
Go ahead.
I believe your tattoo translates to who dares wins and who dares loses.
Correct.
So how does that philosophy, which is pretty interesting, because usually it's who dares win and who dares lose.
Who dares wins is an English proverb, but who dares wins and who dares loses is a Faroese proverb.
Okay, so how does that philosophy build into Tyr and the whole?
Well, it's more of my.
Thing.
I guess it's more my own personal thing. It's a gamble, definitely. If I had any sense, I'd have stopped this a long time ago. Believe me, nobody does this for the money. And the older you get, the more you see. It might have been nice to have a different education to fall back on. Yeah. But no, this is all I have, and if this doesn't work, I mean, I'll go down with the ship.
At least you dared, right?
I did, and I still am. It's going quite well, and I'm positive. I'm positive about this.
Good.
But you have to maybe motivate yourself with a sense of I don't know, with your own poverty and a sense of unachieving what do you call it? My own the words escape me.
I've always said that in order to succeed, you have to fail.
A few times, definitely.
Because then, really, the only time I think Albert Einstein had said this, the only time he fails when you stop trying.
Yeah, true.
Maybe I should get that tattooed right here. Be kind of wordy. Right,
Einstein with a speech bubble.
Right. Yeah. Just get a whole chest Einstein tattoo. I don't think my wife would like that, but that's okay. Who dares wins, right? Or loses.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Tyr in 3 words.
Viking fault bacon. I don't know. That's what they say.
All right, that'll work. Any last words for your fans?
Yeah, the pilot whale is not endangered. Look it up.
I wasn't going to bring that up, but
good. Just leave it.
Whatever. I'm just fishing. That's all.
Yeah,
it's all good. Well, Heri, thank you very much.
Thank you for doing this,
and have a good rest of the tour and.
Thank you.
Back, and we will be anxiously waiting, as we have been for years, on the new album.
So am I.
Awesome. Texas Metalheads, this has been Rusty with Lone Star Metal, and this has been
Heri from Tyr.
Kick Ass.